There's a strange thing that happens with some people. She starts appearing in your messages in the morning. You start waiting for her name on the screen. Something changes in the rhythm of your day. And then, she disappears. Not completely, but enough for you to feel the difference. Enough for you to start questioning what you did wrong. And the honest answer is, you didn't do anything. That's what I want to talk about today. Because there's an entire psychology behind people who pull back exactly when feelings start to grow. And it's much more complex than it seems at first glance. So leave a like to support the channel and stay with me until the end of this video. When someone pulls away like that, the most common interpretation is the most painful one. She lost interest. He got tired of you. You were too intense, or not intense enough, or you came at the wrong time, or you said the wrong thing. The human mind is very good at constructing narratives where the blame always falls back on oneself. But there's another interpretation, one that most people never consider because it requires looking not at what the other person did, but at what they were feeling when they pulled back. At first glance, it seems simple. The person doesn't want commitment. They're afraid of getting hurt. They've been betrayed before. And all of that might even be true. But these are the surface layers. What lies deeper is rarely spoken about because it's rarely conscious. The pulling away doesn't usually happen when the bond is still superficial. It happens precisely when it starts to get real. When messages stop being casual. When you start appearing in the person's thoughts uninvited. When they realize they matter. That's when the alarm goes off. And that alarm has a name. Psychology calls it avoidant attachment, but I prefer to describe it as an internal protection system that became calibrated for the wrong danger. There's a very old part of the brain that registers threats, predators, hunger, physical danger. But this same system learned throughout each person's life to register other things as threats. Intimacy, for example, emotional dependence, the possibility of being abandoned, the possibility of being truly seen and judged. When someone with this pattern starts to like another person, the system interprets the growing bond as a risk, not as something good that's forming, but as something that can hurt. And the automatic response is to pull back, create distance, breathe. It's not a lack of feeling, it's an excess of defense mechanism. This pattern doesn't come from nowhere. It originates from very specific experiences, usually before adolescence, sometimes even before language. When a child learns that demonstrating emotional need results in rejection, in coldness, in punishment, they adapt. They learn not to need. They learn to be self-sufficient. They develop a kind of forced emotional independence that looks like strength, but is, in reality, a scar. So, many years later, when this grown child starts to feel they need someone, the same old system kicks in. The body remembers what the mind has already forgotten, and the message that emerges, without words, is, if you get attached, you'll get hurt. It's happened before. The pulling away then isn't a rational choice. It's an automatic emotional response to a memory that can't always be consciously accessed. The impact on relationships is silent and profound because the person on the other side rarely understands what's happening. They feel the distance as rejection. They interpret the pulling back as disinterest, and often they withdraw too, for protection, precisely when the other person would most need constancy. A cycle is created. The avoidant person pulls back. The other feels the rejection and closes off. The avoidant person interprets this closing off as confirmation that getting attached was dangerous, and the two grow further apart without either of them wanting it. I think this is one of the most painful patterns that exist in human relationships. Not because someone is a villain, but because two different protection systems come into conflict and neither of them can clearly see what the other is doing. The cruel irony is that the person who most needs closeness is sometimes exactly the one who most runs from it. But how do you identify this pattern in yourself? Ask yourself these questions. Do you notice that when something starts to get too good, some part of you expects it to go wrong? Do you find reasons to pull away when the other person shows they like you? Do you feel more comfortable when you maintain emotional control of the situation, when you're not yet so invested? When someone starts to truly get to know you, do you feel an urge to reduce contact, to appear less, to take up less space? These are the signs, but they're not signs of weakness. They're signs of a protection system that worked very well at some point in your life and that hasn't yet received information that the danger has passed. There's also the inverse pattern, and it's equally revealing. Do you notice that you feel more attracted to people who are less available? That when someone is very present, your interest wanes? That distance, contradictorily, ignites something in you? This is also part of the same mechanism. The system learned that closeness is dangerous. So real, available, and constant intimacy doesn't trigger desire. Only distance does. There's a perspective that rarely appears in these conversations, and that I consider important. The pulling away of someone who likes you isn't a moral failing. It's not cruelty. It's not conscious manipulation. It's the behavior of someone who hasn't yet learned that they can be loved without getting hurt, who is still operating with a version of the world calibrated for a reality that no longer exists, who carries an old map to enter new territory. And here's what seems most true to me about all of this. The problem was never the capacity to love. The capacity is there, intact, sometimes enormous. The problem is the visceral and silent belief that love always exacts too high a price. So if you recognize this pattern in someone you like, or in yourself, what remains of all this isn't advice. It's just a different understanding. The pulling away in this case isn't an absence of feeling. It's the presence of a feeling so great that it scared them. It's the sign that something real was forming. It's the paradox of a person who wants what they're afraid to have. And there's a certain dignity in understanding this. Not to change things nor to fix them, but to look at this pattern in others or in oneself with less judgment and more clarity. Some people run away exactly when the bond starts to become real. Not because they don't want to, but because for a long time, want costs too much. This doesn't make them impossible to love. It just makes them human in a very specific way, and a very silent one.